All right, let's do something more spicy. Owen, blasphemy laws. Honest thoughts about that and that being pushed here within the Christian nationalism debate?
I'm a pretty serious free speech guy, so I don't think that we are setting up a new Israelite theocracy in America. I don't think we have any New Testament, New Covenant call to that. So I hate blasphemy of God. But I recognize, you have to recognize that any law that you set can be used against you. And so I would not be an advocate of strong blasphemy laws. I would be an advocate of free speech. That's not because I think that's a small thing. What I want the church to do is get out there and be a witness in the world and take the Great Commission seriously and make disciples by proclaiming Christ, speaking the truth in love, Ephesians 4:15. So I'm not a blasphemy law advocate in the sense that we set up a Christian nation and now Christianity rules the day. I don't think that's what we are called to institute and establish in this era. We are, if we get in public office, we want Christians, salt and light. We want them governors and presidents and prime ministers and statesmen and et cetera and so on. We want all of that. And when they're in office, we want them to craft good law. We want good law. We want the restraint of evil. But you have to be very careful with these kind of things because we don't want to create a formalized Christianity where you're thought to be Christian just by virtue of living somewhere or being in a certain family, being in a Christian family. You are not a Christian if you are born into a Christian family. Some may say that. Some we love may argue along those lines. You are only a Christian when you are born again by God's grace as a believer. So we want to protect that in the home and also in society.
All right, so I'm not going to take the Presbyterian versus Baptist bait at the end there. That's a different topic, and whatever. You guys know how I feel about that. Blasphemy laws. We're going to talk a lot more about blasphemy laws because I think it's such a good example of the kind of thing that really needs to be thought through a little bit better. He says, I hate blasphemy. Well, I'm sure he does, but he does not hate it enough. He does not hate it enough. That's the bottom line. And then he says, we got to remember that anything we do can be used against us. This is one of the most tired, neocon type talking points that needs to be completely beaten to dust. It is garbage. It doesn't make any sense. Number one, there's so many reasons, but let me just give you a few off the top of my head. Number one, they're already using the power against us. They're already doing it. People often will say, we already have blasphemy laws. And it's true. We cannot blaspheme the LGBTQ, gods and things like that. We cannot blaspheme that kind of stuff, the things on the leftist side. That they're already using power against us. But furthermore, take that nonsense to its logical conclusion. We got to remember, they might use it against us. At that point, you're ceding use of any power because any power can be used against us. Christians have to get over this idea that using power is somehow anti-Christian or not godly or un-Christ-like. Christian magistrates, he says, we should have good laws. That's right, we should have good laws. Everybody agrees with that, Owen, of course. We should have good laws based on God's morality, and then we have to have the will. We have to have the unction. We have to have the ability and willingness to use the power that we have, whatever sphere we have that power. We have to have the unction and the will. Is unction the right word? I don't know. I went to public school to enforce that because it's not enough to have good laws. You have to have the will to enforce it. You have to have the will to actually use the power that you have to do what must be done according to God's law. That's the thing. That's the whole point. Because the Constitution, I've said this many times, is great. And he says, I'm a big free speech guy. Yeah, I mean, sure you are. You're a modern version of free speech guy. I'm an original version of free speech guy where we understood that blaspheming the Lord, that didn't count. That didn't count. But the point is, like, the Constitution's great, but it's meaningless if you refuse to enforce it. And you say stupid things like, well, if we enforce it, then they might enforce it against us. It's like, we let them do what they think they have to do. We got to do what we got to do. We have to get rid of that whole tired idea. Oh, they're going to use their power again. They already are. They already are, and we have been unwilling to do the same, which is why we are in the situation that we're in. Here's the thing, guys, and I'm not going to say too much about this because this is not about this. We're going to do an episode on blasphemy laws, but you got to think about the home, right? Like he says, well, I don't want this formalized Christianity that everyone thinks they're a Christian when they're not, right? I think he actually just kind of gave us the argument there, because then he kind of relates that to the home. You're not a Christian just because you were born into a Christian family. Okay, that's right. But here's the point. Let's say I agreed with you. I don't, but let's say I agree with you, right? And I've got my 4 sons here, and only one of them, let's just say, has been born again. The other 3, they're just pagans under my roof, right? Do I install a blasphemy law in my house? As the father, do I allow my allegedly pagan children to blaspheme Christ under my roof? And do I say, well, I have to allow them to blaspheme Christ, because if I did, that would be some kind of formalized religion, and they would start to think they're Christian when they're not, and so I'm just going to let them curse Christ's name because they're not born again yet. Is that how it would work under my roof? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Whether my sons claim Christ or not, under my roof, they will not be blaspheming Christ. And if they want to go blaspheme Christ, they can get out of here. That's how every father would work. I think Owen would do the same thing, right? And again, I don't agree with Owen's fundamental premise there that his kids are just pagans before they're born again. But I think that Owen would do the same thing. He's got an 8-year-old son who's not converted yet, hypothetically. I don't know anything about Owen's family life. This is hypothetical. And his son blasphemes Christ. He would come down on that son. He would discipline his son, right? And rightfully so, because in this house, we honor this is a Christian household. We're a Christian family, and I organize it as a Christian family. And that, just because you don't claim Christ, you still have to go by my Christian rules. Why does he do that? Why would he do that? Why would Owen want that to happen? Well, because the law is a tutor, right? The law is a tutor. We need to put some respect on the name of Jesus Christ. It needs to be different than other words and other names. In this household, we revere Christ. I don't care if you claim him or not. In this household, his name will be holy. It will be revered. It will be respected. It will be feared. And that's kind of the point. In society, that's kind of the point of blasphemy laws. I was talking at the conference the other day, at John Harris's conference, the Truth Script conference, with some people at the lunch table. And we were talking about this to some degree. And it's like, I don't envision, and I think, I like the Constitution, so I think states could differ on this, right? It's not going to come down from the federal government on high. I don't envision that. That's not how I would prefer it. Of course, it doesn't mean it's completely evil if that happened, but I'm just saying, I don't envision it that way. I think each state could kind of land differently here. But I would say that, this would not include secret police, kind of coming into our lunch table and saying, oh, is he blaspheming Christ? Does he have correct doctrine? It's not like that. The kind of stuff that would be banned would be like that art project. Have you heard of this? They call it the Piss Christ, where they take a crucifix and they put it in urine and feces and stuff. And the whole intention of the art is to desecrate the name of Christ, is to blaspheme Christ. That's the whole point of it. It's public, it's proud, it's out there. That would be banned, and that should be banned. That should not be tolerated in a moral society. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. Why? Not because we're trying to pretend people are Christian that aren't, but the nation will be run according to God's morality. The civil governing authority will promote what is good and will punish evildoers. And to blaspheme Christ's name like that is most certainly an evildoer. That will be bad. We need to make sure that the name of Christ is different than other names, is revered, is holy, is feared. Because the law is a tutor. Because the law is a tutor. Do you ever see that episode of, that movie Home Alone? I'm sure you've seen it. You know, there's one point where the two criminals are chasing Kevin, and Kevin runs into the church, right? He runs into the church. And these criminals, they don't care about anything. I mean, they're just degenerates, right? And what do they say? Do you remember what they say? They say, I'm not going in there. You remember that? I'm not going in there. He goes, yeah, me either. They don't want to go in there. And there's certainly an implication. It's not because, there might be other people there. No, it's because that's God's place. That place is holy ground. They're not going to go in there. They had respect, at least a certain amount of respect for the place where God's name is proclaimed. They feared it. You could see there was fear. I'm not going in there. The name of Christ should be that way as well.